Okay, so when most people think about psychics, they go straight to the fictional, mystical TV show narrative where some gypsy looking woman is reading palms, fortune telling, reading tarot cards, seeing the future through a weird crystal ball, doing some weird Harry Potter shit, engaging in black magic, witchcraft, devil shit, or doing spooky shit around candles with Ouija boards, and engaging in other abracadabra, boola boola, mumbo jumbo. I'm not gonna lie. I was a skeptic too until I met psychic medium Cortney Kane Sides. This woman literally gets messages from the dead and relays them to their loved ones that still walk the earth. I have seen her several times display this gift, and I know she was spot on with the things she said that she wasn't supposed to know anything about because the expressions on the other person's face said, "Holy shit." Well, because these sessions are private, I can't give you the audio, but we get to talk all about what she does and what she experiences right now. Welcome to Late AF with Dean Beanz. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, friend.
Hey, what's up, friend?
Hi.
So, I was really blown away when we was down in Florida.
Okay.
And you seen my face because I was the last person, and as you went through each and every person, my face was like, oh, shit.
That was the first time we met.
Yeah, it's the first time.
It was.
I was like, oh, shit. And to be honest with you, I was very fearful of you digging into my life because it has so many layers and shit that I kind of tucked away.
Amen.
And Tam from the show can attest to this because when they auditioned to be the host for this show, a question she asked me was,
so I know that you experienced some trauma as a child, as a young boy, you know, seeing what happened to your father when you were
Facts.
about 5 years old. Does that experience did that weigh on you at all with how you engaged in this young man's life?
It weighs on me how I engage with everybody.
Okay.
I have a fathering complex because I feel like a lot of the bullshit that happened to me might not have happened if he was alive and was able to protect me. So I protect everybody.
Okay.
Like everybody gets protection. You know what I'm saying? I'm that guy that'll actually run into the house that's on fire.
without me saying anything about that, you said, I want you to know that your dad says he's sorry he wasn't there to protect you. I damn near cried a whole Niagara Falls. But because I'm tough and I kept my gangster shit going.
I saw it.
Yeah, I held it in.
I saw it.
But no, on the inside, I was super crying. And it made me realize that people say the Bible says the dead don't talk or whatever. And I'm like, well, why would that happen if it wasn't?
Good.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, why would that happen? Because that was something that was so heavy on my heart for so long that I protect everybody, and I will put my life on the line to protect the person because I felt like I wasn't protected
Yeah.
back in the day.
It's trauma.
So my biggest question is when you first had, I don't know what you would call it, but a voice talking to you, or a guide, or you said a what? A guide or
Guides or angels or
talking to you.
your loved ones.
Did you even know what that was? Did it freak you out?
So, okay, well, first of all, thank you for asking me that question. And the first moment, you know, I was a girl who was raised in, that's the First Baptist Church, summer camp. Sundays were Sunday morning, Sunday afternoons, because I was in the choir, and then the evenings and all. I mean, we were always there. I love the way I was raised. I really honor that. And so I was also raised to feel like anybody who did anything, and what I do today was like, you know, that's the way I was raised. So I understand, and I really still honor that awareness and that knowing. But the first moment that I had an experience, I was sitting in the center aisles at the First Baptist Church, third row in. We were always sitting right there to the left on that side. And our preacher, it was the day that everybody comes down, and, you know, those who aren't saved, you know, come on down. And he was in this major sermon, and of guilt and pain and all of this. And at that point, I had already been saved and was sitting there. And I remember him, it was such a heavy, guilt-ridden sermon. And I remember him, making sure everybody was bowing their heads in prayer. And I remember him, I remember feeling this light or heat kind of come upon me, and it felt like the sun, it felt like light. And I remember just feeling this, knowing, and it felt like God to me. And I remember feeling that energy and kind of lifting my head up. And I think I was in the 3rd grade when this happened. And I lifted my head up, and this smile came upon me, and I felt such love and such warmth in that space. And I was like, my God doesn't want me to be condemned or, damned to hell, or like all of that depressive, oppressive kind of energy. And I remember feeling that connection. And through the years, that is exactly how I feel. Call it God, source, light. And I love that first experience for me was in that 3rd row at church. And I knew that what he described was not what I felt. And I also knew that was okay. But as far as loved ones on the other side, it wasn't until, I knew things. I could walk into homes and feel the history and energy of it. But I thought, if somebody said, hey, Dean, when did you know you had that sense or ability? And if that would be like me saying, well, when did you know you could smell? When did you know you could see? When did you know you could hear? Can you answer that? No. I know. So I can't either.
Yeah, it's natural.
So I always thought didn't know that was different. And so, but I do remember the first time loved ones started coming through to me. My mom had passed when I was 15 and had ALS, very hard disease, and, lots of hurt and pain with that. And after she passed, that gaping hole that we have when we lose anybody, and of course a parent, and that was such a deep wound. And I remember my father and I were super close as well. And I didn't want to sleep in my room alone. I was scared. I wanted my mom, and he would let me sleep on her side of the bed. Right. And so, which I was so grateful for. And about 7 days after her passing, she came to me in a dream, and what I know now is a visit. And I walked we had made the living room like her makeshift room with a hospital bed and all of that. And I walked into this living room, and my cousins were around. It was like a wake, and she's sitting there in her wheelchair, and now her hands were still crippled. And I walked in and I said, Mom, you're dead. You're supposed to be dead. And she said, I'm okay. She still had her voice was mumbled a bit because of the disease, and her voice was still like that in the dream. But she rose her arms up, and her hands were curled. She rose her arms up, and she hugged me. Wow. And when I woke up, that emptiness was gone. And I knew that it was something different. I told my dad about it. My dad was such an amazing man, too. He heard me. He listened. But I told my Aunt Sharon, I said, oh my gosh, I had this dream of my mom. And she said, Cortney, I don't think that was a dream. I really think your mother came to you. I think she really came to you. And I said, I was thinking, well, you're crazy. That's not possible. But every person from that point on in my life, every time came to me within that 7-day period. Wow. But what I did, because I was a very good Christian girl, analytical, I'm smart, I'm not gullible, I wrote that down, and I dated every time it happened. And my whole life it's happened. And it was at the age, it was late 20s, I had moved to Phoenix. And again, every person that I knew had come to me in that dream, but because either I heard of them having cancer or, I heard of the car wreck or the drama around their passing, I just thought maybe my brain was firing, right? I was having the dream, and I was just trying to make sense of it. Late 20s something, I had one of those dreams, woke up, told my husband, and was on my way to work. But I could always tell the depth of the dream. I always thought that that's what was happening. I was already doing this work, but I hadn't put mediumship on my card because that was so sacred. It was also my hurt and my trauma from losing so many people in my life. But I drove to work, and I picked up the phone and called my sister, and I said, hey, I had a dream about so-and-so. It was a friend's mother. She came to me in a dream. I had one of those dreams, and she said, oh my gosh, Cortney, she was killed yesterday in a car wreck. And right that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, my mom really did come to you. And my Aunt Sharon was not crazy.
So, they say that humans only use a small degree of their brain power. So when you talk about what you do, and let's just, I don't know if it's extreme or not, but let's talk about prophets.
Yes.
Are those just people that could tap into more than the average percentage of their brain? Like does our brain actually have a spirit realm that it can jump in and jump out of?
To me, and you've heard me say this, I believe that call it science, call it faith, call it spirit, call it quantum physics. I believe it's all the same thing. And I believe whether, I have used the word psychic medium all these years, call it discernment, call it a prophet, it doesn't matter to me. I almost am ready to let go of those labels because I know we all have this ability, we all have this access. You've had dreams of your dad?
Not really. I only have a few memories of my dad because I was 5
when I
he
passed.
Turning 6.
Yeah.
So I have the memory of seeing him get hit by the motorcycle, seeing him in the air, seeing him on the ground bleeding, and then everybody got me out of there.
Right.
And I snuck back out, and I seen him go out.
Right.
Just, go unconscious. Was in my mind, that's when he died.
Yes.
It was just he went unconscious. He died at the hospital. He gave me a whooping once.
You remember the whooping?
I remember the whooping because my older brother was like my idol when I was really little, and when you're that small, you got like half day schools. So I'm at home, and he went back to school. So I snuck out the house and I went back in his class, and he took me home, and he gave me a whooping. He sat and he laughed at me. He was like, "Man, you like your brother that much, huh?"
You missed him.
I remember that, and I remember one time. I asked my mom about it too because I wasn't 100% sure where he slapped my mama. I don't remember nothing. No, I do remember one more thing.
Yes.
And it was raining outside, and he went outside in some super, back in the 70s,
Super short.
super short. He went out in the rain to take a shower.
Okay.
And I said, one day I'm going to do that because that's just fucking retarded. But
or amazing.
I don't remember nothing else. I don't have any other memories of him.
Yeah.
But the thought that I had of protection was ingrained in my head. So I already believe that what you do can happen because I remember, and nobody know about this, what I'm about to say.
Say it.
So when I was growing up, I used to hear footsteps in the house. And I used to think it was my dad. Well, my dad was in the bike club. And I can't say who did it because I don't know. Like, that's the honest God truth. I don't know. This ain't a no snitch thing. Something happened and somebody got killed. And they went to my house with the body and they dug up the garage and buried him and laid new cement down. And he was there my whole entire childhood. And it wasn't until I was locked up myself for some dumb shit.
Yeah.
My mom called me and said, "You won't believe this." And I'm like, "What? It's been a dead body in the backyard since the late 70s, early 80s. I was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Who did it?" I don't know, but
there it is.
Yeah, one of my favorite people in the motorcycle club ended up catching the rap for it.
Wow.
But I remember those footsteps. I remember the noises. I remember all of that stuff. And when I got out of jail and I came back home, silent. So whoever that person was who was missing for so long, which I understand it was a self-defense thing, but you really can't claim self-defense when you bury a motherfucker.
Right. I would agree.
Whoever it was, they wasn't set free.
You felt them in the home.
I felt them in the house.
Yes.
So when you was talking to everybody, I was like, "Ooh, shit, she about to come and pull some shit out." I don't even know if I...
So I love that. And I love that you say that too, because I think a lot of people are super nervous about that. Now, the way I feel, and I understand it, but the way that I feel about it, and I can just tell you through experience through the sessions, is our guides and angels they're not going to like uncover some of those things. Now, they might refer to those things, but they might not show me like the massive trauma or the bigger things. Now, you might know exactly where it filters in and you will get the message. but that doesn't mean that everybody else in the room knows your business. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks.
And I do feel like your guides and angels and your loved ones will protect you within those group experiences. And some will have more surfacey sessions that are just like, they're fine, but they're not as deep as they could be.
Okay.
And I will say that sometimes even cameras do that too. So it's interesting.
Here's a question. I don't know if you can answer this because you're not dead.
Yeah.
But
They've given me the experience of what that's like. Yes,
Right.
but yes.
so why is it that in real life they're not as open?
Oh,
When they're dead and gone, it's like,
because they're at their that's such a beautiful question. I can answer that absolutely. It's because listen, we're like onions here.
it is.
And I'm 46 years old. I don't know how old you are, Dean, but
1 year older.
there you go. We're in this
27
together. There you
and
go,
a half.
27 and a half. My grandmother always said she was 27. That was a sign from her. I'm like, hi, Grandma, love you. Yeah. So we're onions. And so once we're born,
Really?
layer up, layer. It's trauma. And so we protect, and we're not even always super aware of it. We might feel like, no, we want love. No, we want openness. No, we want to talk about those things. But we can only go to the certain depth that we've been willing to go to ourselves. But I also think that our own family, the way that we've seen them grieve, the way that we've seen them be open or move through their own experiences, we will sometimes match that, And so I think that's just part of being human. And so you'll see the world is waking up, right? You see me take that breath in? Just our simple awareness starts to give us that third-party perspective. And many of us can start to have that perspective that they do there, but it takes a lot of healing to get to that spot. So when we pass, how it feels to me, because yes, I'm not dead yet, how it feels to me is that we have the full awareness of, oh my gosh, we know the ramifications of our actions, our non-actions, speaking versus not speaking up when we should have. We know when we are in our highest form of heart and soul. I kind of compare it to like Scrooge, the movie where he comes back and he's like, oh my gosh, I see the way I've been treating Tiny Tim all of this time, and that he was in such pain and hurt. We see it all. And it is really, really beautiful. So they speak, and when I connect to my sessions, they can come through in the way that they were here, but they can also show us their highest form, which is really beautiful and healing. And we can communicate to them, us here, when we pray, when we meditate, we can communicate to them here and then as their highest form too.
So you are booed up, right? Ethan.
Yes.
Cool guy.
I was like, boot up.
Boot up means you got to boot.
You met my boo.
Yeah.
And he's amazing.
You was married before.
Uh-huh.
What you do is so
Yes.
in one frame of mind is niche, another frame of mind is amazing, and to another frame of mind, crazy.
Like, what the hell? Yeah.
Right? Have you been with somebody that was like, oh, nah, that's some crazy?
Well, first of all, such an amazing question. So, and I'm going to tell you this little story too. So I was married at 26, and I had always my whole life had the paranormal experiences, had the dreams, the premonitions. I didn't talk about it. Even when his name was John, got married, and it was very shortly after, 27, 28, we moved like a week later to Memphis. I started having more things happen. But once I moved to Phoenix, it was like the awakening, the ownership of these gifts set in. Well, he was an analytical left brain, financial executive.
He's a Trumper.
Before
true.
He was, I would say so. And very smart, such a smart person. But he thought it was crazy. So I only would tell him up to so much, and then I would just not say anything. Now, he was a really amazing teacher on my path, because he was also one that would say, you're never going to write that book. Nobody's ever going to pay you to speak. You can't do this session. I was working, and I worked. Oh yeah. And well, it was because he had his own limited beliefs in his mind. He could only go get it.
Put his fears off on you.
Of course, 100%, and many people do. But I knew, not me. And he didn't do it to be mean. It was just, those were his own limited something. Yeah. And so, but I, thank God, knew that. And I just kept taking that next step. And he was amazed to see that I did write that book. It was published, not self-published, but published by a publisher in 2011. And I was touring the country with my old business partner. We were doing speaking engagements. I had private sessions and all kinds of things. So he was, in the end, my greatest fan. Now, he just passed not last summer, but the summer before. No, I don't. But he and I had not been speaking for like.
Still cancel, bro.
What'd you say?
He still cancel.
Well, there's no other family, and so I ended up having to close out his trust and do all of that. It's still not completely done, but yeah. So I'm like, you're welcome, John. But he has come to me in dreams. The day that I got the call, his condo concierge, I was his like next person that, on his emergency stuff. And I knew that. And we were okay. But he was making some really crazy choices and decisions that I just had to distance. And we had been divorced for, quite like 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, we had been divorced for 10 years. And so Ethan and I my boo and I were already together.
Boot up.
Yes, I was booed up. But that day that it happened, Ethan and I had gone out the night before. We were on our way to go do something. I was in the shower. And I opened the shower door and I said, Ethan, and he said, yeah, and I took a breath and I immediately felt this heaviness. And I said, it's so weird how I even said it. I said, why am I full of such regret? And it was just so heavy. And he was like, babe, I don't know where, I said, we're good? And he said, yeah, babe, we're good. So I shut the door and showered, and I just felt, it was so bizarre, and I got out, and then I got the phone call. So I was already feeling it, and that regret was John's, and I know that. John, when I went into his condo, our wedding photo was on his nightstand. He knew the hurts and pain. He did. And he was one of my greatest teachers on my path. If we had not gotten married, I don't think I'd ever be I would have never have moved. I would have never have gotten into that space. And so he was a massive teacher. But to your question, though, the evolution of love that has happened, and you clearly saw how all in Ethan.
Listen, I've never seen a couple say I love you that many times in one day.
We do.
It was like, hey, how you doing? I need to get you. Can you pick up some chicken in the grocery store? Okay, I love you. I love you too. And then call right back. Hey, don't forget the vinegar. I love you. I love you. I was like, hey.
And he's never had anything like this. I've never had anything like this. But I can tell you this, is I'm in a career and a job where I see death all day long.
Right.
And I've also lost so many family members and so many people that I love. And the last 3 years, I've lost a lot of people again in my life. And I don't typically, when I say goodbye to you, I usually say love you. But now my I love you to my boo is, of course, deeper and different. But there's not many people that I let slip out of my life that don't know when I truly care for them. Yeah. Because 2 minutes might pass and I might have a heart attack. I put it out there. I just do.
You do.
I do.
And you are serious about it. Like I see y'all in person, and I'm like, this shit is real.
Yeah, it's real.
Wow. So
it takes healing to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I'm just making this shit up.
Do it.
Just say this. It seems like maybe there's a little rite of passage for somebody after they pass to see their life and see where they messed up, because I've seen you do this session over and over again. And it's a lot of apologizing that happens from the dead to the person that they're communicating with. It's a lot of apologizing. And I'm like, you have to reflect to apologize. So do you think, I know we don't know because we're alive, but do you think that you die, boom, this is your life, a whole movie?
100%. And how it feels to me, and I do always say, how do we know until we're there? And remind me to tell you a story about a dream that I had in an experience that gave me insight to what that feels like. That was very life-changing, I would say. Okay. But I do feel as though that when we pass, that we are given that, call it a book or that movie, and when we're watching a movie, we see everybody else's hand in the moment in the situation, while the one character only sees it from their perspective.
Absolutely.
And so when we have that third-party perspective, we like, oh man, they were going.
I messed up right there.
Wow. And we learn.
Get a chance to say something, and most
take ownership and accountability. And so we can do that. And none of us are perfect.
Right.
And I'm a jerk, just like everybody else sometimes too. Well, maybe my boo has maybe seen it. I don't know. But I will take it. I take accountability and ownership. And I definitely, and it doesn't happen often. And he's so sweet. He would even say that. I know that. Yeah. I know I'm heart-centered. However, again, not perfect, but we can have that third party perspective here. And when we evolve on a soul level, that to me is also what I feel like my job is not just to bring forth signs and symbols, but it's to help us understand we can learn to communicate with them, but we can learn to evolve here. And that also helps evolve that family tree of healing, which is crazy.
Okay, so here's my last question.
Yeah.
This was just an impromptu, but I always got questions. Do you feel like the average person may need to go through this type of session to move forward in life?
I feel like many do. And I can tell you that I have a lot of psychologists and therapists that are clients of mine and that refer a lot of their people to me. And I can tell you what they have said, and which I so appreciate and am honored. And when I say this, I'm just bringing through the randomness that comes through. You've seen how random the things are.
Very random.
It's so crazy. And so I'm still very much like, people say, well, how do you do? What can I expect? And I always say, I don't know. We connect and we see what comes through. Because I just connect to the light, and that's your end. That's your people that I have no idea we'll see. But I do believe that I just forgot your question. So tell me again what that was. Tell me again. It was a really good one. No, I don't.
You eat edibles?
Well, I occasionally.
Troll a little bit?
No, maybe.
Michael, no.
No, but I've done ayahuasca twice. But no.
Wine or liquor?
Maybe both, but all in moderation. Typically.
Have you ever done a session buzzed?
My dear friend, my best friend, she just passed. It was a year ago last week. She's such a jerk, dang it. And she's on the other side. But she wanted to try. We did actually do a gummy, and this was probably 4 years ago. We did a gummy, and she wanted to do a session. She'd been a client of mine for 10 years. She was
in a session.
And she just wanted to try it. And it was I will never do that. We don't do that. No, thank you. But her husband had passed, and we had been doing sessions with him for years, and she was like, I want to try it. And I was like, okay, we'll try it. And we did it for maybe like 10 minutes. I was like, okay, no, thanks. No, thank you. My
gummy for 10 minutes.
No, but connect and try to do the session. But for me, this is how I feel about my work. I do feel like it's pure connectedness.
Yeah. And
anything like that for me is going to filtrate into something that doesn't feel natural, like the light to me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I take it very seriously. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm a believer. Like it's no way for you to know the things that you say. You know, is it 100% hits? Of course not.
No.
Possible.
Yeah.
But for the ones that do hit, it's like, wow, I was blown away till it scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think that if people do have reserved feelings and hang-ups about somebody that passed on, they should probably
it can be so healing.
Tap into that in some way, shape, or form.
Well, and that was your question. It just hit me. And I was telling you about the therapists or psychologists that refer their people. I'm even having doctors refer their patients to me now because their patients they can't be on medication anymore, and it's not helping them, and it's getting worse and worse. We need to be taught to feel. But there's a couple of psychologists that have been with me for many, many years, and they send their clients to me. And this is after they've been working for them also for years. And those psychologists will come back to me and say, what you did, what came through in that 30-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute session is work that they've done for 2 or 3 years and beyond. They're like, we could never have supplied that kind of information. And when they say that, I don't feel like I'm supplying that. It's we're getting out of the way and letting them go direct with their people. And it is a really, really beautiful thing. And in my heart, I know how much I needed it.
Yeah.
And to me, this work is sacred. And I remember after that experience where I knew my Aunt Sharon was right, oh my gosh, my mom really did come to me. Mediumship was that next thing I put on that card, and I never looked back. And that is my heart, is connecting other people like yourself who've lost such people in their life that we needed. Yeah. And it hurts like hell. And when we can heal that, wow, the love that we know that they had for us and we can feel for them is pretty immense.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to appreciate. I want to say, give you my appreciation for coming through and doing what you do, for doing what you did for me, doing what you do for a lot of people. Because a lot of people says the dead don't speak, as the Bible says, like I said before. But the confirmation that you give people and the ease that you give people, I just can't see that as a bad thing. So I appreciate you for putting yourself out there to even, because, if you're talking about hundreds of years ago, you'd have been burned at a stake.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm also from Oklahoma, and so it took a long time to come out. I remember feeling like I was coming out of the closet, and for years ago, I worked under the name Cortney Kane. That's why now you see Cortney Kane Sides, is because for so long it was. I have a domain that gets pointed to the other website, but adding that Sides was terrifying to me because I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to know, and doing that was scary. But I've also never felt like I needed to prove anything because I know my heart, I know my connection to Source, to God, and I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, my friend.